Hello! Today we have Pre-Calc Lesson 30, addition of vectors, and we're going to talk a little bit more about proofs today. Okay, but first let's talk about vectors. Okay, a vector has both magnitude and direction. Just like the villain in Despicable Me, who says he has both magnitude and direction, he is actually mathematically correct, so he's an awesome villain. Okay. And when we add vectors, okay, we need to convert them into rectangular. Always convert them into rectangular first to add them. Then your answer is in polar. Okay, so if it says find the resultant, that tells you your answer needs to be in polar. Okay, find the resultant of 420 and 7, negative 230. All right, so let's first convert from polar to rectangular. I hope we remember that. 20 degrees is here. This is our r. X is our cosine of theta, which is the I hat. Y is our sine of theta, which is j hat. No r and u anymore. Okay, I hat and j hat. So x is going to be 4 cosine of 20. Y is going to be 4 sine of 20. Now we cannot get exact answers on this. So this is going to be 3.76 I hat, and this will be 1.37 j hat. Okay. Now we do 7, negative 230. So this is negative 180, negative 270. So negative 230 is here. My r is 7. And the angle I have in here is 50. X, again, is our cosine theta. It's going to be 7 cosine of 50. And we know that x is negative because it's in the second quadrant. All students take calculus. Cosine is negative in the second quadrant. So this gives me negative 4.5 I hat. Y is going to be our sine of theta. It's positive. The S stands for sine, so we don't have to change it. It's positive. And this gives me about 4.36 j hat. Now, I'm going to add my I hat terms and add my j hat terms. So I will get 3.76 minus 4.5 I hat plus 1.37 plus 5.36 j hat. And this gives me negative 0.74 I hat plus 6.73 j hat. Now, I have to convert this back into polar. You can think of it as a coordinate point, negative 0.74, 6.73. I have negative x here, positive y. Gives me this point. If I draw my graph, this is 0.74, this is 6.73, r in theta. I can use the Pythagorean theorem for r, so r squared is 0.74 squared plus 6.73 squared. So r is going to be the square root of all of this, the square root of 45.84, which gives me approximately 6.77. And theta is going to be the inverse tangent of opposite over adjacent, which gives me approximately 83.73. But I'm in the second quadrant. Our theta always starts at 0 and goes over. So I need to do 180 minus 83.73, which gives me 96.27. So my final answer, I write in polar form 6.77, 96.27. Okay, I know I went through that a little fast, but we should be comfortable with converting from polar to rectangular. We did this in Algebra 2. Okay, the only difference is we're converting first to rectangular and we're adding our I hats, we're adding our j hats, and then we're converting back into polar. Okay? All right, now the other way we're going to see these problems is we're going to see it as word problems. So, two forces, a 450-pound and negative 6 170-pound force are applied to an object. Find the equilibriant of the forces. The equilibriant is the same thing as saying find the resultant. Again, this means that your answer is to be in polar form. So we first take these and convert them to rectangular. So 50 degrees puts me here with an r of 4. X is always r cosine of theta, which will give me 3.21, that's my I hat. Make sure your calculator is in degree mode. Y is r sine of theta, which gives me 4 sine of 50, which is about 3.06 j hat. Now they're both in the first quadrant, so they are both positive. Now let's look at negative 6 170. 170 puts me here, but the negative 6 bounces me over here. So I'll have 6 and 10 in here. Because I have 10 here, 170 is 10 degrees short of 180. So x, again, is r cosine of theta, which gives me about 5.91. And y is r sine of theta, but is negative because we are in the fourth quadrant. All students take calculus. Cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant. Sine is positive. So I have negative 6 sine of 10, which gives me negative 1.04. Again, x is your I hat. X is what used to be called r, for those of you who had Miss Fran Bree. And y is u. We're no longer using r and u. We're using I hat and j hat. Okay? So now we add our x terms. So I have 3.21 plus 5.91 I hat plus 3.06 minus 1.04 j hat. This gives me 9.12 I hat plus 2.02 j hat. I have to convert this to polar. So both my terms are positive, meaning I'm in the first quadrant. This is 9.12, this is 2.02, theta, and r. R squared is 2.02 squared plus 9.12 squared. So r is the square root of 87.25, which gives me approximately 9.34. Okay. And then, oops. Go back up here. Sorry, guys. I realized I made a mistake. This should be 2.57, not 3.21. So we would have 2.57 plus 3.06, which gives me, 2.57 plus 5.91. I should actually have 8.48 here. Sorry guys, the I hat term is 8.48. So I would have 8.48 here. Just put a line through that. So r is going to be the square root of 75.99, which gives me 8.72. Sorry about that, I made a slight calculator error. And then theta is the inverse tangent of opposite over adjacent. Which gives me about 13.40. I'm in the first quadrant, so I don't have to change anything. So then I get 8.72, 13.40, and then go all the way back up to the beginning. It's a word problem. All of my units are pounds, so I have to write a unit of pounds here. Okay, do not forget your unit of pounds. All right, now I want to do one quick proof with you guys. Okay, and then we'll do, actually let's do another vector force problem, then we'll do a proof. Okay, what vector force must be added to a force of 2030 newtons to obtain a force of 25 newtons. Okay, so what this is saying is I'm adding 2030 plus some r theta, and it's giving me 25 I have to convert everything into rectangular, so let's convert 2030 into rectangular. X is our cosine of theta, which we know that the cosine of 30 degrees, right, if we draw our triangle, we have root 3, 1, and 2. The cosine of 30 degrees is root 3 over 2, so this gives me, 20 divided by 2, gives me 10 root 3. It's my I hat. Y is going to be 20 sine of 30, and we know that sine of 30 is 1/2, which gives me 10 j hat. And let's convert 25 which is right here. Now we know that the cosine of 0, right, so x is going to be r cosine of 0. The cosine of 0 is 1, so this is 25 I hat. Y is our sine of 0, which is 0 j hat. Now, side note, we have these 4 points, 0, 90, 180, 360, and each of them has a coordinate point, which tells us the cosine and sine of those values. So at this point 0, cosine is always x, sine is always y. So the cosine of 0 is 1, the sine of 0 is 0. Okay, you need to memorize those 4 points. Now, what this is telling me is I'm doing 10 root 3 plus some x, I hat, and 10 plus some y, j hat, is going to give me 25 I hat and 0 j hat. Okay, so I'm having 10 root 3 plus x is giving me 25. So x is 25 minus 10 root 3. Now, in this case, you will be asked, we won't leave it exact. We will get a decimal approximation. So x is going to be 7.68. If I ask you an exact answer, this would be an exact answer. Okay. Then we'll have 10 plus y is 0. So y is negative 10. So my resultant in rectangular form, this is my I hat, this is my j hat, is 7.68 I hat plus a negative 10 j hat. And I have to convert this into polar. Everything's in polar. Okay. So it gives me this point down here. This is 10, 7.68 r theta. r squared is 7.68 squared plus 10 squared. So r is the square root of 158.98, which gives me approximately 12.6. And theta is the inverse tangent of opposite over adjacent. Which gives me about 52.48. And I'm going to do 360 minus 52.48, which gives me 307.52. So my final answer is 12.6, 307.52. These are lengthy problems. You need to make sure you leave yourself space when you're doing these problems, that you give yourself time to do them because they are long, especially on like a test. All right, let's do a proof. It's a new type of triangle we're going to see. Okay, it's called overlapping triangles. So if we have this triangle and this triangle, I know we're having some trouble with proofs, so I want to help. Given AB is congruent to DC and BD is congruent to CA, and I want to prove that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle DCA. Okay. Statement, reason. So, start with your given. AB is congruent to DC and BD is congruent to CA. These are given. And draw that. AB is congruent to CD and BD is congruent to CA. Now, I'm going to redraw the triangles to see it better. ABD. This is DAC. These are congruent and these are congruent. Now, if I look here, they have on the same side, AD and AD, so I can say AD is congruent to AD by reflexive. So, triangle ABD is congruent to triangle DCA by side, side, side. Okay? You need to know how to do all types of proofs, even if we have overlapping triangles. All right, now that's all for tonight. I hope you have a good rest of your night.